Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we praise and hold in the light and celebrate the wonderful people in our communities who do very special things, who contribute in significant ways. We want to thank Wilkes Communications, River Street Productions, and 100.9 WIFM for this opportunity. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be with you today. Our featured guest is Ted Hagaman. He's an incredible contributor in this community. He's the executive director of the MeerleFest, who just completed 30 years here at Wilkes Community College, and will start next year, it's the 13th year as its leader. And we're just so honored to have him, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Gary. Thank you for having me again.
Ted Hagaman, seems every time we're together, I know I'll leave a better person. I want to thank you for that because you bless us in countless ways. So just completed the 30th and I suppose the biggest year ever. So just tell us how it feels to get through this year.
Well, it's always a great feeling when you see that last car pull out on Sunday afternoon after the festival. But we could not have asked for a better festival this year, it being our 30th, which is a special milestone, and just wonderful weather to deal with and incredible talent. And our crowd was so well-mannered, and we had just a great weekend. It was great.
Do you sense those folks who came on so early, Doc Watson and others, do you kind of feel like that they left such a rich tradition that it just makes it such more special than maybe normal would be?
I think that had a lot to do with it. You know, some of those people are still coming to the festival. We have several artists like Sam Bush and Peter Rowan and Jack Lawrence, Jerry Douglas, Joe Smothers. Those 5 artists were here from the very beginning. Jack Lawrence and Joe Smothers were actually playing with Doc and Merle. And so they've been here all this time. And then of course, Sam and Jerry and Peter have been here all of the 30 years. And they carry the torch for us, of course, with Doc being gone to the music world. But what they helped establish is still unique, and people really gravitate to that. They like the tradition of what our festival offers, and we are unique in comparison to other festivals in that we are more family-friendly, alcohol-free, and people feel very safe when they come to our festival. So yes, I think going back to your question, people like Doc and the values that he stressed in forming the festival still live today. And that's one of the reasons that we still live today.
Is that garden, that initial garden, is it still there?
Oh, yes.
Same place?
Yes, sir. In fact, that's why we started the festival. Was supposed to be a one-time concert to help fund the building of the garden. And so that still is right in the center of MeerleFest, and I think it's very appropriate because so many people do visit that garden when they're here.
Where is it? For a person who, tell me where it is.
Most people know where our red caboose is on campus.
Okay.
It's right behind the red caboose. It's in a beautiful area. It's got a brick wall that kind of surrounds it, and it's a very unique thing because it is focused as a garden of the senses.
Garden of the senses.
Yes. So how appropriate with Doc being blind for the garden to be really developed for people that,
do you know
cannot see.
That garden of the senses, do you know from whence that came? Does anybody know?
B. Towns, who was really the founder of MeerleFest, he was a horticulture instructor at the college, and so it was his idea to do this. And So that's really where it came from, and you know, all the credit should go to B for thinking out of the box and making contacts with local citizens who could help him figure out how to go about doing this and funding this. And so that's how it all started.
Ted Hagaman, you were here in early April, a couple weeks maybe before the 29th, 28th. And from an organizational perspective, from a leadership, from a team, you talked about if you just get through Wednesday and Thursday, then everything will be smooth after that. Do that again. I love to hear how you frame that, just get through those 2 days.
Well, we count on so many volunteers to pull MeerleFest off. In fact, during the festival itself, we'll use 600 to 700 volunteers just during those 4 days to get things up and running. But so many of those volunteers have done this year after year, and we do have volunteers that have been there all 30 years. And they take ownership in what they do.
Wow.
They're experienced, they know what to do, and even when new volunteers come on board, which we do have new volunteers every year, they just kind of take them under their wing. We always say that the toughest days of MeerleFest normally are going to be Wednesday and Thursday, and Wednesday being the day before we get started, and Thursday being the day that we do start. And we say, you know, if we can make it to Friday about lunchtime, then by that time everybody's going to be in place. We will have put out the little fires that popped up in trying to get things up and going. And then it just really kind of takes a life of its own, and we just kind of step back and let those volunteers and those group leaders take it from there, and we just kind of, you know, manage from there. And it happens that way every year.
Wow. I met your Tabitha Hudler earlier, and boy, she's a talented lady.
She is. We're very fortunate to have people like Tabitha on our staff.
Do they, you know, when they come, it's just almost like an instant aha, you know, and so.
Well, she does all of our box office operations, all the tickets, credentials, just wears a lot of hats. She's also over our apparel and MeerleFest gift shop, and so she wears a lot of hats during MeerleFest.
Yeah, that's good. Talent really makes it enjoyable, doesn't it? Having great people.
Absolutely. I mean, we just have a wonderful team. They really do. They know what they're doing. They take a great deal of pride.
And having confidence, isn't it? You know, you know you can do it. You know it's going to be right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ted Hagaman, this was a banner year. This was 80,000. Is that a threshold? Is that a significant threshold, the 80,000? Have we had more than that?
We have crossed that threshold a couple of times in the history of the festival. We're still crunching a few numbers, but we feel like this particular festival will be in the top 2 or 3 of all-time attendance records, which is great. That's not always been, and it still is not our goal. Our goal is to maintain the quality of the event. There is a point, I think, when you can get the event too big to where you don't provide the services that people expect if you're going to keep the quality. And so there's a balance there. And so we keep an eye on that. I don't think we're quite to that point yet.
Okay, I was going to ask that question.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but you know, we still have to remember we are in a rural setting with, you know, some of the road systems are not conducive to handling huge crowds. They're great for handling the day-to-day, but maybe not for huge crowds. So we have to look at it from the standpoint of, let's make sure that we don't ever take our eye off the quality piece, because when you've got quality, that will ensure that you continue to do well. If you ever take your eye off of that and strive to see how many people you can put in this area, then I think that slips a little, and that's not what our goal is.
Ted Hagaman is the executive director of the MeerleFest. When you talk about quality, could you mention 2 or 3 like significant things that we know that we're really good? What would be some of those quality issues that somebody might not think about, like emptying trash cans? You've told me that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, true. I mean, you go to a lot of festivals, and a lot of times they don't take the time to make sure that they keep garbage cans clean. We want to make sure we've got a bus system that will continually get people on and off campus as quickly as possible. Our scouts do a great job. They actually added 4 buses this year to handle the crowds, and they did a great job. We look at things just like on our programming to make sure that we try not to overcrowd stages and we can spread things out a little. We look at things like bathrooms and making sure we got enough food vendors and things like that, so people won't have to wait in line and take their day to try to take care of things like that. It's the little details that I think make a difference. But the number one thing, we always look for good people to help be in leadership roles and making sure that, you know, we have caring people that really want to try to take care of people. That's a critical
Caring
piece.
people, caring for people.
Right.
How about that? I'm amazed from hearing a lot and from being there on Saturday, the new features, the things that your team is able to do just to stay ahead a little bit. How do you, these ideas, these new offerings, if you will, how does that come about?
Several ways. We do surveys at the end of every festival, and
How do you do that?
We survey people at the festival. We have people going around asking questions. We also survey electronically through the website.
Oh my goodness.
And we send surveys out to a lot of different people. We try to get a good cross-section to know that we're talking to people that represent the people as a whole. And so we ask people, you know, one of the people that work for us, he always uses the term, what causes you the most pain? And so that's a good question to ask, you know, what is it that you would like to see improved? And so we ask our customers, what is it that you know, we can do better? And it's surprising, they'll tell you a lot of times what you need to be doing differently. We also sit down as a group and we have teams that we work with. We have a team that takes care of the site. We have a team that takes care of volunteers. We have a team that takes care of our programming, so on and so forth. We sit down, we do recaps, and we look at what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better. And we get some great ideas. So every year we try to tweak things, and we know that we want to keep our values, and you know, a lot of people like a lot of the traditions of the festival. We want to try to preserve those, but we're always looking for ways to move people better and take care of them and make sure maybe that they've got shade that they go to if it's hot, and you know, the little details.
You were talking about the accommodations. I went into one of the tents kind of in the middle. As a first timer, I can't identify it, but there was room. Mm-hmm. You know, must have been 50,000 people, but I found a chair. You know, it was comfortable. It was a breeze. It was just a most enjoyable moment for me. Yeah. You already talked about the 5 guys that have been there every time, right?
Right.
I want you to talk about David Holt. I'm amazed. I'm watching him on TV, on UNC TV, about every night at that State of Music, and he's a tremendous interviewer. I could get some lessons from him. Tell us about David Holt.
Well, David's a tremendous musician. He's very talented in a lot of different ways, and that's one of the reasons he has a television show now. We have known David a long time. David actually traveled a lot with Doc, particularly after Merle passed away, and they performed a lot on the stage together. So he can tell us a lot of insights a lot of times about Doc. And sometimes we'll bounce ideas off of David to ask him his opinion on things. Particularly, you know, David, what do you think Doc would think about this? And so he's been a very good friend. He's also somebody that out on the road, he does a good job at promoting MeerleFest. So we consider him a very good friend.
So he might share with Steve Johnson possibly a talent that
Sure.
is that would be good for us.
Sure.
So he knows the value and the culture of the festival, so he has his heart in it.
That's true. And then when we are programming the festival, a lot of times we may be trying to decide what to go here or whatever. David's very flexible and is a good one to call and say, you know, we're needing to put something in this slot. Would you consider doing that? Sure, I'll be glad to do. You guys know I'll do anything you can to help your festival. So, very good friend.
We make lots of contributions to the nonprofit arena. Just a little overview of how that went this year. What did people say? I'm sure with the crowds bigger that the sales were, somebody told me that you need to have a great Sunday for the nonprofits to have a good season. So talk about the value of the nonprofit for MeerleFest, Ted.
Well, you know, naturally the festival benefits the college. I mean, that's why we do it. It's a fundraiser for the college. But in the early years when things were being set up for this festival, the group that was over that at that time, and B. Towns again was in the lead chair there, had a very good idea of making sure that we involve local nonprofit groups. And so it benefits the community in an amazing way. Over the past 5 years, we've averaged well over $400,000 going to these 70, 75 community civic organizations. And that's, you know, there's not a lot of things that go on in other communities that you can turn around and say that so many of the groups and clubs and organizations in the town benefit as well. And that's not even saying anything about the economy, what it does for the economy. We're talking about what scouts and churches and schools and things like that can raise, and a lot of those groups depend on that money to really fuel their projects throughout the year. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. That's the neat thing about this, is everybody that participates wins.
The town of Wilkesboro with the campground and the shuttle service back and forth, 3,000 campsites and 8,000 people. Think of the contributions that's made in 29 years. I think they've been doing the campground. You want to speak to that?
Well, Sewer Fest is a great thing, and it's now to the point it just sells out every year now, and so many people love to come and camp there. And there are other camping opportunities as well that do well. But yes, it certainly benefits the town and its employees. So again, it's a win-win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute about the behind the scenes. You know, what that most people never think about, now you're already working on next year. So talk about,
yes,
if you will, just share with our wonderful people watching today about what goes on, not specifically what goes on, but kind of how much goes on behind the scenes that people really don't think about.
Well, I laughed when you said you were already working on next year. Actually, Monday I had a conference call. We're already talking about 2019. So it's you know, you're having to look forward a year or two at a time. I mentioned that we do have teams. We have 7 or 8 teams in the MeerleFest organization that look at certain segments of the festival, and we're constantly planning, and it takes steps every year. This has to be accomplished before we can do this, and so on and so forth. And we basically have it down to a science. We have a timeline we work off of every month. And so we know what steps that we need to accomplish each month to be able to get to April and be ready for the festival. And we have about 16 full-time people at the college that are full-time employees of the college. None of them are actually focused on MeerleFest by itself, including myself. We are doing events, we're doing marketing for the college. Some of the folks are doing fundraising in other ways with other events. Some are doing design, graphic design for brochures for the college, as well as MeerleFest and the Walker Center. And then we do about 275 events through the Walker Center and the Watson Stage and rooms on our campus, as well as MeerleFest. So there's just a lot of pieces to this that have to go into place for it to happen.
It's kind of a working process. It's just constantly
Always.
changing.
Always, and you know, people will comment right after the festival, I guess you're resting and taking a break. Well, that's not totally true, because the day after the festival, we're meeting on that stage on Monday morning after that festival, talking about with our production crew what went right, what can we do better, talking about performers for the next year. So it's just a constant year-round process.
Yeah. I rode over on Monday afternoon, and it was moving out. You know, it's just the planning that goes into it. We just need to really appreciate those who are serving behind the scenes. You've also emphasized to me that Mondays after Sunday is the time we start writing thank you notes. The significance of that, if you will, Ted.
Well, I think everybody appreciates being
Well,
thanked. I think, and I do too.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, people do come and put their heart and soul in what they do. And we could not do this unless we had an army of people that were willing to give their time and their efforts to put this on. There's just no way we could afford a payroll. I don't know that you could go and hire people that would have the same passion as the people that come and volunteer. So the least we can do is just send them a note and say thanks.
Yeah.
We appreciate what you do.
And the guy from Greensboro that does the sound, does he actually come?
He does. Oh, yes.
Does he really?
Cliff has been here all
Has he?
30 years, and he brings his motor home, and he stays in the lot where the artists are. He's here all the time.
Tell that story again, if you will, about Merle and him.
Well, Cliff Miller is somebody that has been in the music business, whether it be on the production side or performing for many years, and he was a friend of Doc and Merle's. And so when B. Towns was trying to put this thing together, the initial concert that was going to happen, Cliff was involved, and when it was obvious that Doc had invited more people to come and more people had accepted to come than what they had planned on, Cliff is the one that said, well, why don't you create a stage in that big field down in the lower end of the campus, which at that time was a big field. It was kind of a swamp. And he gave the idea, let's take 2 flatbed trailers and put them side by side and create a stage. And he said, we can put the sound down there, and that way you can have performances going on at the Walker Center, and at the same time you can have performances down in the lower field. And that's what they decided to do. And so he's the person that we have had guide us through all these years. He has a huge company. I know they do the sound for the stadium in Charlotte, and they do things all over the country as far as sound. They've done all the sound and production for Alison Krauss tours, and so I mean, you know, they have a large resume, but he is truly a great friend of our festival, and he's there every year, and he's right there, got his sleeves rolled up, working with his guys.
The mechanics of the volunteer organization, how many will maybe not come back? How many come in, and how many have been there 30 years? Can you just hit on that one more time, Ted?
Well, I couldn't tell you exact numbers on any of those. I do know that we have many 30-year volunteers, and we have many that will come back year after year. But we always see opportunities for new people to come in. Of course, people move. People may have life events such as weddings or funerals or things like that that prohibit them from being at a particular festival. So we're always looking for new volunteers to come and participate. Our volunteer process will start in October, and that's when we'll actually put the application out for the next festival. And people can go to our website and click on volunteers, and there's an application. It's very simple and very quick, but we're always looking for more volunteers.
Let me share my 30th year experience. My first year, Ken Nolan's one of my heroes here in town, and he invited me to come over and to pick me up in the parking lot.
Great.
And came inside, and well, you know, I just felt like how good it made me feel, you know, to have an escort, you know, to have an insider, somebody had been there 16 years, and we were in and out, and we got to see Presley Barker play, and I got to see David Holt in the press, and so, well, I was just really overwhelmed with it.
Ken's a great ally. The town does a great job in supporting us, and he's been a very good friend. So you got a good tour guide there.
I guess my key takeaway is the amount of concentration and dedication to children. Share that with us a little bit, how important that family concept is, Ted Hagaman.
It is, you know, it's kind of rare to find something like what we do in the festival world where kids can come and have activities to keep them busy and help them to appreciate what the festival is all about. And it's also a way to build customers for the future.
It is.
No doubt about that. So one of the neat things is we're finding now is a lot of people that grew up at MeerleFest as kids are now bringing their children to MeerleFest.
Yeah.
And we also try to keep a lot of the same type of activities and things for kids to do. Again, unique because we're in a day of computers and video things and a lot of high-tech things, and we just try to make it simple. So the kids do love to come and put sand in bottles. They like to make art out of junk. We bring scrap exchange in, and they just literally bring junk, and they help. It's organized, but it's a great way for a kid to come and make something and to spend some quality time and to be exposed to the music. We have a little picker stage where we put special programming on for kids. We want them to love coming to the festival. We want them to have a good time. And the neat thing about it is the way we have the Little Pickers area positioned, it's right next to the Watson Stage and Grounds. So the thought process there is parents can bring their kids and let those kids participate. And in the meantime, they can be within an earshot of the music and they can enjoy themselves as well. So it's a good deal.
Ted Hagaman, Executive Director of the MeerleFest, 30 years, you're coming on your 13th year. You bless us in countless ways, and I just am so, when I walked in and looked up on that hill where the Avett, that's what brothers were playing?
Avett Brothers.
I was overwhelmed with the immensity, if that's a word, of what was happening there. I just was, I just couldn't hardly believe the people. So what a tribute to you and your team. Close with how your concept of teamwork and what it means to the MeerleFest.
Well, I mentioned earlier about we just got wonderful people that work together. And you know, anything that is successful, if you really look at it, it goes back to the people that make it work.
Yeah.
And so it's not one individual, it's not a couple of individuals, it's definitely a team that makes this thing roll.
And the synergy that comes from working together, when you achieve synergy, greatness is going to happen.
Absolutely.
Ted Hagaman, you honor us in special ways, and I hope you'll come back again.
Thank you,
God bless
Gary.
you for your servant's heart, how you make things right in the middle of good stuff. Thank
Well,
you.
We appreciate your support all the
Thank you.
time.